No major quake shook the Mount of Olives. No more lightning struck the dome. The trumpet tone at 0430 had gone quiet. People told one another the danger had passed, that normal life was returning. But the quiet stayed too perfect. Even the restless winds that usually prowled the valley fell still. Dr. Levy felt the pause like a weight pressing behind her ribs. Every sensor still hummed, showing tiny fluctuation patterns that refused to flatten. The graphs looked like an organism testing its pulse after long exertion. Whatever had been breathing seemed to be gathering itself. She began assembling all collected data into one system: geology, atmosphere, hydrology, electromagnetic resonance. Separate devices from different agencies finally merged into a single timeline. When she plotted their numbers against one another, a clear rhythm emerged, invisible until now. Each event, the lightning, the floods, the trumpet sounds, the ceremonies, even the red heifer's arrival, fit inside a consistent numerical interval. Ratios repeated like chords of the same musical piece. Jerusalem had not experienced chaos, it had been composing. Colleagues who saw her presentation sat wordless. "We've recorded a pattern that behaves like intention," she said simply. The ministry requested a written report for the archives. She submitted it under the title, "The Convergence Phenomenon." They published a redacted summary, technical, sterile, but the full document leaked within days. Online it appeared with graphs translated into bright lines of color: gold for electromagnetic data, blue for seismic, crimson for atmosphere. When overlaid, the streams formed a single shining path that crossed the city east to west, beginning at the crest of the Mount of Olives, intersecting the Eastern Gate, and terminating at the center of the Temple Mount. 3 points, one line, every data set in agreement. Journalists called it the Axis. Believers called it the Highway of the Lord. Camera crews returned to Jerusalem. Pilgrims doubled once more. Politicians tried to deflect the surge by emphasizing academic caution, but their words carried no gravity against images of pure alignment. By spring, strain meters confirmed that the mountain had resumed movement, only now the direction had changed, not east from west, but downward, straight into the heart of the ridge. The ground was caving very slowly along the axis itself, centimeters a month, as though carving the valley that prophecy described. Satellite laser altitude mapping displayed the forming depression clearly. People could not see it with their eyes yet, but computers could. The Mount of Olives was separating into 2 lobes, the beginning of the valley. Levy stayed in the field station night and day. Sleep no longer came. She felt less like a scientist and more like a witness chosen against her will. She wrote, "The mountain moves with precision. Fear feels almost inappropriate beside such symmetry." Each dawn she stood where she could see the sealed gate, shining faintly under morning sun. She believed the pressure building beneath might force the wall forward at any hour, yet nothing collapsed. Not a single stone shifted beyond the rhythm she already knew. Whatever momentum drove the process had patience far greater than human. Meanwhile, historians studying ancient city foundations uncovered yet another curiosity. The lowest stones of Jerusalem's earliest defensive walls, newly cleaned after flood erosion, were oriented perfectly along the same axis traced by sensors. The builders of 4,000 years ago had laid the city's first line in obedience to an alignment modern tools only just rediscovered. Even before prophecy was written, the ground itself had taught it its geometry. The realization shook the remaining skeptics. Lawmakers who once mocked the sign watchers now ordered seismographs for their own offices. Even stock markets responded. Companies selling surveillance equipment or emergency rations began to climb. Faith had become a measurable economic force. On the night of April 6th, a mild earthquake rippled across the region, magnitude 5.1. Minor in damage, but sharp in symbolism. For the first time, tremors radiated in both directions at once, east toward the Mount of Olives and west under the Temple Mount. The two pulses met in the middle and canceled one another out, creating a still zone precisely above the ancient Kidron Valley. The valley that text promised would one day split open. Levy stared at the pattern on the monitor, pale lines converging, then flattening. "It's speaking in balance now," she whispered, awed. Two sides communicating. In the weeks that followed, the air over that middle line began showing anomalies of its own. Temperature sensors rose and dipped without explanation. At times, the air shimmered like heat mirage, even in cool weather. One evening, tourists recorded a beam of sun striking directly along the axis, illuminating the sealed arches of the eastern gate while leaving surrounding stones in shadow. Astronomers confirmed that the angle corresponded exactly to equinox alignment, something that occurs naturally, but only once a few decades does the light land perfectly on that wall. The coincidence tightened the world's fascination to near breaking point.
Religious broadcasts compared present data to ancient verses about glory returning through the east. News outlets debated frameworks, prophecy recounting science, or science rediscovering prophecy. Either description seemed inadequate. At the height of debate, a new fracture opened in the Dead Sea Basin, far to the south. It followed, predictably, the same east-west orientation. Geophysicists confirmed that stresses originated from Jerusalem rather than the other way around, as if the city itself were pulling the land outward. Pressure was redistributing along a track that reached all the way to desert wilderness. The axis was expanding. Global monitoring agencies met in emergency session. The phenomenon was no longer local. Distant stations from Greece to Sudan recorded minute sympathetic oscillations at the same frequency. Whole tectonic plates seemed to hum in harmony with this single strip of Earth. In private correspondences, colleagues asked Levy for words to frame what had no precedent. She answered with one sentence: "If the Earth had a heartbeat, this would be it." Cities far from Jerusalem reported side effects: drops in compass reliability, temporary static bursts in radio frequencies around 55 Hz. The mountain song had gone worldwide. In June, another strike of lightning touched the Temple Mount. Storm forecasts failed to predict any clouds in the area. The bolt appeared out of clear sky, connecting invisible charge between heaven and stone. Security footage captured the flare painting both domes, the Dome of the Rock and the smaller Golden Dome above the Orthodox Church on the Mount of Olives, in a single flash of light. For one frame, the two structures glowed as one. Engineers called it photographic resonance. Believers called it rehearsal. By now, the question no one dared voice aloud reached Levy in the form of a formal inquiry from abroad. Could these convergences be leading to a singular global event? She responded only, "Evidence points toward culmination rather than collapse." The researchers reading those words interpreted culmination differently depending on their worldviews, but none rejected the possibility that all measurable forces were drawing toward focal synchronization. The city's own energy functioned like a circuit closing. On the first week of July, the valley filled again, not with floodwater this time, but with people. Pilgrims of every belief and language lined the slopes, waiting for something undefined. Each evening they scanned the sky. The faint hum returned, audible even to untrained eyes. A heartbeat through stone, too low for microphones, yet felt through soles and skin. Children played on rooftops, tapping rhythms against metal rails, imitating the sound. Market vendors subconsciously followed the same tempo as they weighed fruit. The city had acquired a beat.
Levy sat at her workstation, watching graphs rise and fall in cadence with the outside world. For once, the numbers comforted her. They meant she wasn't imagining this. Every tremor, every pulse followed predictable mathematics. The unknown became measurable, an event structured, not random. That order, however alien, was beautiful. Yet beauty carried dread, because every system with rhythm eventually reaches its refrain. Near midnight, July 17th, the final convergence began. Pressure data from the Mount of Olives, the Eastern Gate, and the Temple Mount rose simultaneously for the first time since recording began. 3 peaks, 1 formation. The computers marked coordination probability at 99.96%. She stared through the tent flap toward the faint outlines of domes and arches bathed in moonlight. A small tremor vibrated through her chair, steady, slow, not violent. Then a second, stronger wave lifted dust, followed by silence deeper than sleep. Monitors showed equilibrium. The 3 sites locked at identical strain values. Numeric perfection. Levy felt tears run down her face, unprofessional and uncontrolled. "It's done aligning," she said aloud, though no one else was present. Outside, the horizon carried the first gray hint of dawn. The air smelled of rain, though none was forecast. Birds began calling, and somewhere beneath their chorus, another note trembled up through the ground. Not the low moan of earlier months, but something higher, almost human in pitch, like a choir warming its throat. She leaned forward, wondering if it came from machines or earth. Instruments confirmed both. The line between them was gone. For 3 minutes, the same length as every trumpet sound, the tone held. During those minutes, every compass in Jerusalem spun in circles. Clocks lost synchronization and reset to a single reading, 000000, and then the vibrations stopped. Data streams ended in zeros. Later, experts would call this moment a global synchronization glitch triggered by extreme magnetic resonance. Others would call it the stillness before appearance. Either label misses the larger truth. Everything stood ready. The prophecy, the science, the land itself, all converged at one coordinate. When the sun broke fully over the horizon, its first light shot directly along the axis between the mountain and the gate. The line flared gold across rooftops, splitting shadow and illumination down to the stones of the Temple Mount. To some it looked like ordinary sunlight. To Levy, it looked like a sword unsheathed. In that moment, she understood the convergence was not conclusion, but invitation. Something had finished arranging the stage, and something else was about to step into frame. She closed her notebook and whispered, "Whatever this is, the signal has been sent." The morning after the convergence, Jerusalem felt weightless. The air seemed thinner, light sharper. Even the shadows had precision, edges carved in gold. A calm so absolute hung over the city that noise itself appeared to hesitate before breaking it. Dr. Levy stood on the Mount of Olives terrace with her instruments dormant around her. Screens blank, sensors mute, every system reporting normal. For the first time in 2 years, there was nothing to measure, but still the silence hummed. The kind of quiet that exists only when sound sits just beyond hearing. She wasn't alone. Hundreds had climbed the ridge through the night, unable to sleep after the tremor at dawn. They whispered, but each voice broke into hush as the sun stretched over the skyline. From her vantage, she saw it strike the eastern gate first, burning bright enough to force her eyes closed. Even behind her eyelids, the shape etched itself, 2 gold arcs, a doorway drawn in fire. When she looked again, The light had spread across the valley like a river. Cameras clicked, drones whirred. The world watched through feeds. For 9 minutes, nothing changed. Then the horizon flickered, as if a mirage chased across the city. Every stray beam bent toward the axis, linking mountain, gate, and temple. At 9:17 a.m., seismographs reawakened on their own. They read a whisper-level vibration, so gentle that most software dismissed it as background. But the pattern was eerily articulate, a repeating sequence. 2 short, 1 long, pause. Morse code without letters. Pulse without quake. Messages flooded Levy's inbox from colleagues across continents. Are you seeing this? Every station from Athens to Nairobi showed the same microsignal, arriving simultaneously. The world's crust was tapping in unison. Reporters clambered up the hill demanding comment. She waved them away and stared at her data. The frequency rested at precisely 55 hertz, identical to the earliest trumpet tones. The world itself had begun to hum again, this time quieter, subtler, as if practicing restraint. Down in the city, loudspeakers carried real news: traffic closures, power surges, phone networks throttled by usage. But what caught broadcast microphones was the crowd's murmur gathering words into rhythm. A chant moved like surf through the streets. "Open the gate." She could hear it roll across tile and courtyard, a low plea rather than a shout. No authority started it. No one commanded it to stop. At 10:03 a.m., radar imaging reported temperature rising under the eastern gate, 1 degree every 30 seconds. Cement expands when heated. So does faith. Soldiers arrive to stand guard, but no weapon can stop silence from swelling. By late morning, golden haze thickened over the valley. Pilgrims described fragrance on the air, sandalwood, oil, rain though none fell. Something unseen pressed against the senses, an impression that light had mass. Levy ordered her sensors tilted westward toward the Temple Mount. Output climbed off scale. The electromagnetic readings formed symmetrical peaks again, perfect parallels like footprints in invisible dust. She realized with sudden certainty that the pulses coming from the mountain were meeting identical pulses from beneath the gate. The 2 waves collided exactly midway. Interference normally cancels sound. This collision amplified it. The air itself seemed to glow. For 1 heartbeat, she thought she saw motion. Stones of the gate flexing, not cracking, not shattering, merely adjusting as if remembering their original position before Suleiman's men sealed them centuries ago. She blinked and the image stayed. Mortar dust drifted from the seams, spiraling upward, catching sunlight like incense. No tremor registered, no quake shook walls, only release. A scream tore from the crowd as the lowest row of stones exhaled a faint sigh and settled. Cameras zoomed in, global feeds switched live. Across networks, people watched ancient rock inhale light. The gate still stood, fully walled, yet every viewer felt the same impossible thought. It was breathing. Scientists scrambled for vocabulary. Thermal expansion, photon cascade, structural resonance. None reached sufficiency. Levy murmured, "It's responding." The golden haze deepened, turning white. Within its glow, outlines dissolved, arches, rooftops, even human silhouettes absorbed into brilliance without being consumed. Then came the sound. Not the mechanical roar of quakes or the long metallic trumpet of months past. This was softer, simple, wind through reeds, human breath drawn on the edge of song. It filled the valley with a single vowel that seemed to hold every language ever spoken. No one could have recorded it properly. Microphones clipped at overload. Cameras froze frames of blank light. Yet those who stood there remembered, each in their tongue, hearing a word meaning the same thing: enough. At that instant, the pulse stopped. Every instrument on Earth measuring resonance flatlined to zero. Clouds rolled in from east and west and met directly over Jerusalem, closing like curtains. A brief rain followed, the first in weeks, a clean rain that smelled of metal and myrrh. When the haze cleared, the gate looked unchanged, sealed, silent, stone. But measurements proved otherwise. Its temperature had equalized with human body warmth, and the void below registered filled with solid matter that hadn't been there before. Not stone, not water, simply density beyond the scanner's scale. As if empty space had been replaced by presence. Across the world, transmissions resumed. Every digital clock that had frozen at 0000 after the convergence now displayed an identical, unprecedented timestamp, 11:11:11 UTC, even in zones where that hour hadn't yet arrived. The precision struck mathematicians first, then the symbolism overtook them. Ones across the grid, beginning, beginning. Levy sat among silent instruments and let the moment pass without analysis. The pattern ended, she whispered, though in her heart she knew patterns never end. They transform. In the weeks that followed, reports spread of strange calm continuing over Israel. Weather stable, tectonic noise minimal, animal migrations redirected toward the region. Fishermen in the Dead Sea claimed schools of small silver fish now swam freely through water that should kill them. Botanists found unexpected greenery on cliff faces once dead. Pilgrims hiked there to watch, not certain whether to cry or kneel. Financial markets steadied. Conflicts momentarily cooled. The world behaved as if it had exhaled after long panic. An editor, once skeptical of prophecy, wrote, "Perhaps miracles are simply physics behaving kindly." Levy avoided interviews. She spent evenings walking the valley paths between the gate and the mountain. Birds returned to the groves that had burned months ago. At dusk, air shimmered faintly around the crack now turned smooth trench. A valley not yet split wide, but undeniably real underfoot. One evening she reached the crest where instruments had once screamed with data. Now only stillness answered. Yet when she placed her hand on the soil, she felt a gentle vibration echoing like heartbeat under skin. It no longer frightened her. She realized the earth was not threatening destruction, but restoration. People asked when the next sign would come. She smiled sadly. People always ask. But even she understood now that watching for spectacle misses the point. The signals had aligned because history itself had aligned. What humanity had shattered, time had restitched into a straight line. She wrote her final report entirely by hand. The convergence continues invisibly. The mountain and the city remain stable. The sealed gate maintains gentle outward pressure. All frequencies rest at equilibrium. Whether measured by science or faith, the system has entered stasis. After creation, rest. She folded the paper, placed it in an envelope without address, and left it inside the crack of a ruined olive tree on the ridge. Wind whispered through branches, carrying the smell of new rain. Down in the city, electric bells began to ring the evening hour. The echo clung to the valley, fading into a hum so low it felt like heartbeat once more. Everyone else heard only the hour mark. Dr. Levy heard reminder. She stood watching until the horizon flamed orange behind clouds and the first star blinked above Jerusalem's roofs. Somewhere beyond visibility, the sealed gate waited patient in shadow, and deeper still beneath stone and soil, something watched with equal patience, measuring time the way the universe does, without clocks, Without hurry, the world had not ended. It had simply shifted its weight from one foot to another. Levy turned to leave. Behind her, the faintest quiver ran through the ground, no louder than a sigh. She didn't record it. Some data belong to eternity.
Computer models redrew themselves, trying to explain a warming line beneath sacred soil. None succeeded. Levy met quietly with a hydrologist who had been studying the Dead Sea's new springs. He showed her charts of groundwater flow. "The fresh water moves along the same axis as your fault," he said. "Our aquifers are aligning to your geology." She pointed at the line across his screen. "And it runs east to west?" He nodded. "Always." That night she walked the ridge alone. The stars trembled in heat haze, and beneath them the city lights flickered as if mirroring the sky. She whispered calculations under breath: magnitude increases, harmonic intervals, temperature rise. Each number obeyed ratio, not chaos. Even randomness had order here. When she returned to the tent, the latest seismic feed awaited. The mountain had shifted again, small but measurable. She wrote in her log, "The Earth continues to synchronize with environmental anomalies. No natural precedent. Conclusion withheld." Her report ended with an accidental question at the top of the next page. Is the planet trying to tell a single story? By late August, global audiences were listening. Documentaries framed the developments as climate emergency. Believers watched them as the long-promised labor pangs before revelation. For both camps, the screen looked the same: storms, fire, locusts, living seas. The only difference was vocabulary. Every live feed carried drone footage from Jerusalem. Two halves of the Mount of Olives glimmering under lingering smoke. A line of living earth stretching like a scar toward the eastern gate. Reporters used new phrasing now. They called it the scar that sings. Across the desert, cameras filmed another impossible event. A sandstorm shot through with flashes of blue lightning so intense the sky turned violet. Local observers said it looked as if the atmosphere itself had cracked, east to west. The alignment appeared everywhere, an invisible compass built into creation. Rivers swelled eastward, winds bent westward, magnetic anomalies traced the same orientation. Even those who rejected prophetic cause found poetic structure irresistible. One editorial summarized the collective unease: "We thought chaos ruled nature. This year, nature writes in straight lines." Back in Jerusalem, Dr. Levy drew a final statement for the season's report. Global systems are mirroring the same axis as local seismic patterns. Correlation is now statistical certainty. Whether the stimulus is geological, climatic, or spiritual, the synchronization is total. She hesitated before sending it. Then she added one more line, a concession to the world's unspoken question. If pattern implies purpose, we may already be inside the purpose. When the weekly note returned that Thursday, it seemed different, louder, yet somehow melodic, a chorus of elements rather than one instrument. The sky glowed faintly red against black clouds, but no storm followed. The sound carried across valleys already green with new springs and black with burned trees. A strange harmony of life and loss, moving east to west. Dr. Levy stood at her station listening. Her instruments measured air temperature, sound pressure, magnetic flux, but her own senses told her what the numbers could not. The resonance felt alive.
The fires died, but the fever of expectation did not. Through the heat haze of late summer, another story began to climb the headlines. Quiet at first, then unstoppable. It did not start in laboratories or with storm clouds, but inside a modest building of white stone tucked inside Jerusalem's old city. There,
Artisans had been working for decades behind closed doors, reconstructing sacred objects word for word from ancient law, the Temple Institute. Now, suddenly, their work was complete. Within their vaults lay everything necessary for worship in a temple that hasn't stood for 2,000 years. Golden lampstands, silver trumpets hammered from single bars, priestly garments spun with rare dyes, even measuring tools cut from pure cedar. No exhibit signs, no glass cases. Each item polished and waiting as if rehearsal were finished and the curtain about to rise. The world noticed. Reporters who had covered earthquakes and fire now streamed through narrow alleys to film racks of glimmering artifacts. The chief curator explained calmly to the cameras, "Our task is preservation and preparation. When the day comes, everything must be ready." She did not say what day or who would decide it had arrived. Outside, the air vibrated with competing shouts. Some hailed the work as hope returned. Others called it provocation. Everyone mentioned the Mount of Olives in the next breath. Satellite images of the fault line appeared alongside pictures of priests rehearsing. Commentators drew their own parallel. A city splitting physically while faith prepared spiritually. Dr. Levy ignored the politics at first, but she couldn't escape them. Her apartment overlooked both the ridge and the plateau of the Temple Mount. When she woke before dawn on Thursdays, she could feel the sound and see the domes tremble in resonance. It was as if the mountain and the courtyards were answering each other. At first, the Temple Institute's plans remained theoretical. Then the impossible element arrived. In September 2022, months before the first cracks appeared, a rancher from Texas had shipped 5 young red heifers, the exact breed and condition ancient law required for ritual purification. At the time, it had barely caused a ripple. Now, with the world staring at Jerusalem, the connection surfaced. Photographs of perfect copper-colored animals grazing under Israel's sun circulated online. Pastors in America and rabbis in Israel quoted the same tradition. When the 10th red heifer appears, the age of redemption is near. Late one night, Levy scrolled through the images on her phone, unable to sleep. She noted the timeline. The animals arrived months before the lightning, before the fractures, before the first trumpet sound. She shook her head. Coincidence again. Eternal word of refuge for those unwilling to say, sign. Political agencies began holding closed meetings, not about heifers or prophecy, but about security. The Temple Mount is and remains the most volatile 45 acres on Earth, claimed by 2 peoples and 3 faiths. Every rumor of construction or excavation brought protests. Any suggestion that Jewish rebuilding could begin where the Dome of the Rock stands carried the potential for war. Yet the Institute's preparations accelerated. Architectural renderings circulated online. Blueprints showing a temple designed within centimeters of ancient description. Computer simulations placed the structure just north of the dome, allowing theoretical coexistence. Others drew versions that did not. Arguments flared across every political and religious spectrum. While officials measured diplomacy, prophets measured time. Luxurious precision metalwork finished. Garments shipped from ateliers to climate storage. One rabbi told a reporter, "Everything required is ready, only the command is missing." His tone implied that the command could come from heaven itself. As this talk spread, tremors around the Mount of Olives increased once more. Seismic graphs showed subtle upticks in amplitude. It was as if motion beneath the earth pulsed in rhythm with activity above it. Data analysts ran correlation charts. Frequency alignment exceeded 90%. 2 patterns, geological and human, rising together like twin notes in the same song. Governments sought explanations men could debate rather than revere. Press briefings mentioned routine tectonics and restoration tourism. None of it mattered. The city had already decided the mood for itself. In coffee shops, locals compared the current year to the language of end-time texts handed down through generations. Rumors of wars, plagues of insects, storms rewriting weather.
The details were modern, but the outline ancient. Within that outline, one blank space remained: the temple. In October, the Temple Institute quietly announced that the red heifers had reached maturity without blemish.
For the first time in 2 millennia, the ritual barrier preventing purity at a new temple had, at least technically, been removed. That statement lit every feed on Earth. Some networks called it a curiosity, some called it prophecy. Analysts again overlaid timelines: red heifers, fissures, trumpet sounds, storms, blood-colored lake. The combined chronology stretched across exactly 12 months, each month echoing one new phenomenon. Coincidence was losing ground. Inside her office, Levy stared at maps stacked with lines of data, east-west fractures crisscrossing the Mount of Olives. She whispered to herself, "Everything aligns to intention." Her assistant asked what she meant. Even the people. The city's geology and its theologies share the same coordinates. On the morning after her remark, the Department of Antiquities released thermal scans of the ridge. Energy readings concentrated along the fracture's midpoint showed temperature variants forming shapes, 2 parallel bars connected by a short bridge. Analysts joked it resembled a doorway. No one laughed long. Pilgrims stood above that line now, praying toward the Temple Mount rather than from it, mirroring the ancient ascent in reverse. The motion of the faithful duplicated the motion of the ground. Everything was moving toward reunion. When government spokespeople urged calm, social channels exploded with countdown theories. One post read, "Every prophecy ends at the same place. We're almost there." Another simply showed side-by-side images, heifers in sunlight, tremor graphs, and a golden lampstand shining in darkness. It racked up millions of shares before moderators took it down. Diplomats warned that even talk of temple reconstruction could ignite war. Yet a faction within the Knesset proposed a symbolic cornerstone-laying ceremony near the eastern wall. The date offered was September 24, 2025, 2 years ahead, enough time for planning, they said. Analysts noticed that the date fell in the Hebrew month of Elul, the season of repentance and trumpet blasts before the new year. No one missed the symbolism. Levy received a copy of the proposal through a friend in government. 9 words caught her attention: to mark the unity of heaven and earth. She stared at them for an hour, then returned to her instruments. Unity was the one thing this city never achieved until the earth itself started forcing it. Every Thursday dawn brought the ancient tone as reliably as sunrise. Every tremor measured a little higher. Every plan for future worship moved a little faster. The rhythm of heaven's calendar and geology's calendar appeared merged. How long before they played the same note? A week after the proposal leaked, a private recording surfaced. 40 priests dressed in white, rehearsing trumpet calls in a secure courtyard. The sound was clear, measured, mathematical, the same frequency the mountain emitted through rock. Audio engineers overlaid the 2 tones. Perfect harmonic match. For secular listeners, it was science. For believers, confirmation. For Levy, a question without category. How could sound coded into fault vibrations appear spontaneously in instruments designed millennia ago? Someone somewhere, she thought, was orchestrating rather than observing. Meanwhile, political consequences hardened. Neighboring nations warned that any movement toward temple reconstruction would trigger conflict. Yet a faction within the Knesset proposed a symbolic cornerstone-laying ceremony near the eastern wall. At home that night, Levy replayed the trumpet rehearsal through headphones, comparing it with the low hum recorded under the Mount of Olives. For 3 minutes, 2 sounds blended until they became indistinguishable. Her chest tightened. She stopped the audio. Silence carried the same pitch. From her window, she could see the ridge where instruments blinked red, and beyond it, the golden rectangle of the Temple Mount glowing under floodlights. Between them, the valley slept, unaware it was the hinge of history. She whispered into the quiet, "Everything waits for one sound."
From the moment the date leaked, September 24, 2025 stopped being a number on a calendar and became a destination. Journalists wrote countdown pieces. Tour operators quietly reserved every available hotel room in Jerusalem. On social feeds, users began referring to the coming event in capital letters, the Day of Trumpets, each rumor feeding the next. Officials insisted it was only a ceremonial rehearsal. 100 priests would gather in the Old City to sound the shofar in unison, a public call to repentance ahead of the High Holy Days. But among those following the chain of signs, earth splitting, waters turning fresh, skies bleeding red, the announcements sounded like final punctuation. What had been theory now had a timestamp. For Dr. Levy, the acceleration felt disturbingly predictable. The data from her instruments read like a metronome counting down to the blast. In July, the tremors repeated every 9 days. In August, every 7. By early September, Earth movement aligned to a 6-day cycle. The pattern was not just regular, it was rehearsing, building toward tempo. At 4:30 a.m. on the first Thursday of September, the hum beneath the Mount of Olives shifted again. Higher, sharper, resonant. Spectrographs showed overtones not present before, harmonics climbing into the range of human hearing. Residents didn't merely feel the sound anymore, they could hear it. Short, blowing bursts, distinct tones rather than one steady drone. 3 notes coming again and again like breath exercises. Commentators noticed the parallel: 3 notes, 3 weeks to the ceremony. Even skeptical engineers admitted the match. Levy wrote in her log, "The mountain is learning to play." That same morning, a short-lived fog rolled off the ridge, drifted across the valley, and settled over the sealed eastern gate. When sunlight cut through, witnesses swore they saw glints racing along the stones, forming the faint geometry of a doorway glowing from within. Cameras captured almost nothing, just distortion, but those who stood there insisted the image was real. Whether lens flare or omen, the story traveled everywhere. Media coverage turned feverish. News networks built countdown clocks on their websites. In Rome, Cairo, London, Washington, the words Jerusalem and September 24 filled crawls beneath talking heads. Tickets to the city sold out, and satellite trucks converged until every hotel roof bristled with antennas. Governments worried, but they couldn't forbid a religious festival. So they prepared for crowd control and prayed the event would pass quietly. Only Dr. Levy's data suggested otherwise. By mid-September, seismometers recorded what they thought impossible: low-frequency oscillations aligning precisely with lunar cycles. Every moonrise amplified the hum, every moonset eased it. When technicians overlaid graphs, they realized the final strongest resonance would coincide exactly with the planned trumpet ceremony. Across town, priests finalized rehearsals in secret courtyards, each man holding a curved ram's horn polished until it gleamed. They were not actors. Every breath they drew rehearsed words lost since the last temple's fall, sounds meant to declare freedom and forgiveness. The plan was simple. At sunset, on the appointed day, 100 shofars would sound at once from locations across Jerusalem, all synchronized to the same clock reference so the waveforms would merge. Cameras would broadcast the moment globally. The setup required precision engineers to calibrate timing to the millisecond. That job fell to the same research university monitoring the Mount of Olives. Levy realized with a chill that the same network of instruments used to measure earthquakes would now synchronize religious ceremony. Science and prophecy sharing systems. On the morning of September 24, the city woke under clear skies. Drone footage showed tents of journalists covering every hilltop. Crowds flowed through checkpoints in restless expectancy. Vendors sold water and small plastic horns to children. Tourists photographed everything, trying to freeze a moment before it arrived. Levy walked to the observation deck facing the valley, notebook in hand. Her equipment transmitted temperature, ground strain, and electromagnetic flux in real time. Numbers looked calm, too calm. Silence before explosion. At 4 p.m., regional power grids dimmed for several seconds, an unexplained surge traced to no source. In her earphones, the hum of the mountain deepened back to the original 55 Hz, as if settling on the note the priests were preparing to play. When the sun began to lower behind the western hills, the shofar bearers took their positions. Each stood facing east toward the Mount of Olives, valleys separating faith and stone. Television anchors narrated in reverent whispers. A pale half-moon hung above the old city walls. 5 minutes before the appointed moment, magnetic field readings began to spike. Compasses wavered, drones lost orientation. Leaving muttered to herself, "It's responding early." But there was no halting what had been scheduled for years and perhaps millennia. At exactly 6 p.m. local time, a single signal tone transmitted through every equipment feed, triggering simultaneous sound. 100 priests pressed horns to their lips. The first breath became sound, raw, harsh, ancient. A second later, hundreds of thousands of spectators shouted or prayed or froze as the blast spread through air, walls, body. The shofars held the tone for 10 seconds, then one long rise and drop, perfectly matching the harmonic sequence the ground had produced for months. Sound waves overlapped, twisting into a living ribbon of resonance that swept across the valley. Sensors in Levy's tent went wild, voltage overflowing, readouts scrambling with currents they could not process. She could no longer distinguish the artificial from the natural, the human breath from the mountain's answering hum. The two merged in a storm of vibration. Every building in Jerusalem vibrated. At the Temple Mount, pigeons exploded skyward in a spiraling cloud. On the Mount of Olives, dry soil jumped off the ground in dust devils circling the fissure. Lightning, though none was forecast, erupted horizontally, east to west, blinding white, tracing the very line of the fracture like handwriting of light across earth. Crowds screamed, others fell silent. Cameras shattered their timestamps as if clocks could not record what unfolded. For exactly 3 minutes, the blast continued unwavering.
Then silence returned, so abrupt it felt physical. In that void, for one heartbeat, no one spoke or moved. Children covered their ears. Priests lowered horns. Even the usual city traffic stopped. Jerusalem held its breath. Then instruments registered it. The ground motion reversed, switching from outward pull to inward compression, as if the halves of the mountain had exhaled and were now breathing in. The effect lasted 10 seconds. When it ended, all systems returned to normal. Journalists rushed to summarize a miracle or near disaster, depending on preference. Headlines appeared instantly. The day the world listened. Jerusalem holds its breath. But Levy's data told a quieter story. Each meter of ground along the fissure had moved closer by exactly the distance it had stretched over the previous months. The mountain, long splitting apart, had drawn itself together again, just slightly, just enough to suggest muscle rather than fracture. Reports varied wildly. Some witnesses saw light rising from the eastern gate at the height of the sound. Others swore they saw nothing. Video showed distortion but no form. The human eye saw glory. Cameras saw interference. By nightfall, power across the region fluctuated. Satellite feeds blinked out. When signals resumed, all readings synchronized to a single timestamp, 18:03:17, the second the shofars began. That same second appeared on every geological instrument, audio recorder, and weather satellite on Earth performing at the time. A single shared time code for sound, lightning, and movement. No natural system could align them so perfectly. Within hours, the internet filled with theories that the priests had somehow created an acoustic seismic reaction, that energy reflected off atmospheric ducts, that frequencies long dormant in the Earth's crust had awakened. Believers answered simply. The city heard itself. Levy filed her formal report. Event correspondence total. Human and geological frequencies indistinguishable during period. Cause unclassified. In personal notes, she added, "If heaven wanted proof, it could not have chosen cleaner data." As darkness thickened, an unforecasted wind swept from east to west across the valley. Dust lashed faces, banners tore. Those remaining outside felt temperature drop as if a vast door had opened somewhere unseen. At 7 p.m., tremor monitors under the Mount of Olives recorded 4 sharp pulses, the same pattern logged months earlier after the 12th trumpet tone event. 4 footsteps. They lasted 8 seconds, then stopped.
In the following stillness, someone near the eastern gate began to sing an old chant of hope. Others joined until hundreds of voices filled the night. Above their heads, the ridge glowed faintly red along its seam, not with flame but reflection, like metal cooling after enormous heat. The mountain was quiet again, but changed. Ground-penetrating radar showed new cavities beneath the central fissure, slim but continuous, as though pressure had hollowed a tunnel east to west. Engineers peered at screens and muttered what everyone thought. It looks like a corridor. Official statements avoided conclusions. The priests released no comment. The world dispersed slowly back to its routines, but few forgot the resonance vibrating in their bones. Dr. Levy didn't sleep that night. Before dawn, she stood on the ridge listening for the familiar 4:30 a.m. hum. It did not come. Silence stretched over the valley, calm yet unsettling. For the first time in a year, the mountain said nothing. She whispered into the stillness, "Maybe it's finished." But her instruments, waiting dark and patient under canvas, flickered once. A single spike at the edge of detection, more felt than heard. It lasted 1 second, then vanished. Not noise, a pulse. She checked the timestamp. 4:30 a.m. precisely. The silence kept its appointment. Somewhere deep below, the corridor of stone inhaled and waited.
For 5 centuries, the Eastern Gate had slept, its twin arches locked with mortar, stones immovable, graves spread before it like loyal guards. Suleiman the Magnificent sealed it in 1541, believing he had closed the path of any Messiah who might dare to enter. Now, after the Day of Trumpets, the city no longer believed in sealed things. Before sunrise, crowds gathered along the Kidron Valley, gazing at the wall that faced the Mount of Olives. Some swore the gate looked brighter in the half-light. Others said it breathed, the air around it warming and cooling in steady rhythm. Levy avoided speculation and stared through her field glasses. Infrared sensors registered mild heat along the mortar seams. Unusual, but not yet proof of movement. Still, the pattern was there, a thin, perfect line tracing the form of a doorway. Later that morning, the first reports came from caretakers of the Muslim cemetery spread before the gate. Soil had shifted. Several gravestones tilted eastward, others west, following the direction of the quake line on the mountain opposite. No violent shaking, only slow, deliberate displacement. When drones surveyed the area, their images revealed a faint curve running through the graves and pointing directly to the gate's center. Authorities blamed water erosion. No one truly believed them. Within days, a new rumor swarmed the streets. Someone had seen light burst from behind the stone archway during the final shofar blast. Video surfaced showing little more than camera flare. But the story moved faster than any official denial. Pilgrims arriving from abroad knelt in the dust outside the wall, whispering prayers through cracks between stones. The Gate of Mercy, they called it again, reviving the title forgotten since Ottoman soldiers walled it up. Levy watched the frenzy with growing dread. Her data from after the ceremony confirmed what sensation had already suggested. The mountain's two halves now pulse inward and outward together, as if breathing. That inward draw pointed straight at the gate. Symmetry again. Impossible symmetry. She presented the findings to a closed meeting of engineers. Charts glowed blue and red on the screen. Forces traveling east to west, converging under the wall's foundation. Energy refocus is centered here, she said. If the strain increases, the first structural failure could happen beneath the gate. Someone asked if that meant collapse. She considered, then said, "Not collapse, opening." Satellite radar confirmed tiny shifts along the wall's base. Micrometers, yet measurable. An archaeologist in the back whispered a line several were already thinking. "The gate shall remain shut until the prince enters." After the meeting, Levi walked alone through the quarter toward the valley. Every alley buzzed with speculation. Posters plastered walls with the same two images: light in the clouds forming a cross, and the sealed arches of the gate outlined in gold. Between them, block letters read, "Prepare the way." By week's end, religious leaders across denominations urged restraint. They feared that a single rumor of excavation might ignite violence. Yet people still came. Muslims visiting ancestral graves, Christians quoting verses under umbrellas, Jews reading psalms against the wall. Faiths divided by doctrine now shared the same direction of prayer. No one noticed how their bodies formed a mirror to the mountains split, east and west. On October 2nd, seismographs registered 4 quiet pulses at pre-dawn, the same footsteps that had followed the trumpet ceremony. They arrived in perfect intervals, strong enough to set small pebbles dancing on the ground beside the wall. Camera recordings caught motion blur along the arches, some claiming to see stones shimmer in rhythm. Officials dismissed the footage as vibration artifacts, but the raw frames showed something stranger: dust inside the gate, fluttering outward, though there's no internal space exposed to wind. Levy's team installed ground-penetrating radar beneath the eastern slope. Data returned images of a hollow void directly below the gate foundations, rectangular, consistent with a long hidden passage. Ancient texts mentioned such an underground corridor, but it had never been verified. Now the instruments painted it in luminous pixels, stretching eastward exactly toward the Mount of Olives fault. The invisible line linking prophecy to geology had turned tangible. At first, the government forbade further scans, citing preservation. Then, quietly, they requested 3D modeling through the university. Levy supervised the process, but released no conclusions publicly. Unofficial copies of her report appeared online weeks later. Void width, 2.6 meters. Height, 3.4 meters. Alignment, east to west. Apex, roughly matching the mountain's central fissure depth. The leaks triggered hysteria. Broadcasters ran computer animations of tunnels of light connecting the mountain to the gate like arteries. Hashtags multiplied by the hour. Hashtag Gate of Mercy. Hashtag Open Jerusalem. Hashtag Sealed No More. Pilgrims flooded the valley. Police erected barriers. Metal detectors whined. From her vantage point on the research vehicle, Levy heard the crowd chanting in languages she didn't always recognize but understood nonetheless. Variations on "Open to the King."
She continued recording data. Magnetic readings near the wall began to spike in regular waves, matching those from the Mount of Olives. The two sites pulsed together at 5-minute intervals, each responding to surges from the other, a resonance loop across half a mile of city stone. She wrote in a report, "The city behaves as a single structure." She stared at the sentence before adding, "Possibly a single organism." Mid-October brought another sign. Photographers captured faint luminescence clinging to the edge of the sealed archway each dusk. What camera sensors interpreted as infrared glare appeared to human eyes as warm golden light seeping through seams. The color matched the alloy of the reconstructed menorah housed in the Temple Institute. For skeptics, it was reflection from street lamps positioned beyond the wall. For believers, it was internal fire, the same glory once said to fill the ancient sanctuary. Neither side could disprove the other. Within 10 days, lightning again struck the dome of the rock, the 4th time in 18 months. Each bolt aligned within degrees of the same coordinate on magnetic charts. After every strike, satellites recorded short electromagnetic pulses looping between the Mount of Olives and the Eastern Gate like silent echoes. No weather model could explain the repetition. Nature had found a route and refused to deviate. By November, the city had become one long equation written in light, sound, and movement. No variable independent of another, everything feeding into alignment. Every headline, sermon, and scientific abstract converged on a single inquiry: what is underneath the gate? Levy finally received limited clearance to install pressure sensors inside the ancient wall's foundations. Construction crews drilled micro-holes under supervision of preservation officers, while the crowd chanted above them. Dust fell like snow. The devices went live at midnight. At 04:30, the sensors recorded the first pulse. Pressure increased in smooth waves rising from below, not down from the surface. The source was several meters under the ground and approaching upward. When the data appeared on her monitor, Levy whispered the same word 3 times: ascending. She checked for noise interference. None. She recalibrated. The readings persisted. Over the next 3 nights, the pulses grew stronger, forming a pattern: 1 long, 2 short, pause, repeat. Universal rhythm for heartbeat. Earth under the gate was alive. Reporting such a claim would end her career, but the measurements spoke without bias. She saved the files, printed them, and hid the printouts in her field binder. Then she looked toward the wall through the open tent. Moonlight traced a straight line from the ridge to the gate, exactly along the fracture path. She felt that weightless silence that precedes thunder. At dawn, the 5th pulse arrived. Wider, slower, powerful enough to make the nearby cemetery tremble. As stones shifted, fissures opened between them, releasing cold air that smelled of rain and time. Witnesses filmed vapor curling upward and condensing into fine mist above the graves. White, dense, shaped like narrow columns marching toward the wall. Someone shouted that the dead were exhaling. By sunrise, the vapor had dispersed, leaving damp soil and an even stronger scent of ozone. Engineers inspected the gate. No damage visible, still sealed, yet instruments placed along its base showed fractional movement outward, 1 millimeter, then 2, expansion lasting 8 seconds before returning to rest. Even stone seemed to take a breath. International outlets replayed the footage endlessly. Commentators debated between subsidence, gas emission, or optical illusion. None aligned with measurements. A week later, Levy received a satellite composite showing micro-infrared hotspots under 3 points of the wall: left arch, right arch, and the keystone between them. When connected, the coordinates formed the same geometric triangle as the pattern of tremors under the Mount of Olives. Symmetry complete. She typed a single line into her diary that evening: "If design exists, its architect is waiting for one final signal." Then she closed the notebook and sat in silence, listening to the faint hum running through the ground beneath her chair. Steady, conscious, patient. The same hum threaded through the eastern wall of the city, the same note that had haunted her life for 2 years. And though the gate still stood sealed, she sensed it had already begun to listen back.
In early May, Jerusalem expected calm. The skies had been clear for weeks, spring light softening the limestone walls. Then the air changed without warning. Meteorologists noticed it first, an anomaly flickering across satellite feeds. A storm cell appeared not from the west, where Mediterranean fronts are born, but directly above the city, materializing as though conjured. Rain fell within minutes. It began as drizzle, then hardened into a curtain of water so heavy the streets vanished. Within 15 minutes, alleys turned to rivers. Traffic lights flickered and died. The downpour overwhelmed every drain, sending brown water tumbling down stone stairs older than many nations. In the command tent on the Mount of Olives, Dr. Levy's team sheltered among equipment racks, watching instruments spike. Sensors that measured ground moisture leapt beyond safe readings. The fissure zone flooded. The team feared collapse, but curiosity forced them outside. Rain hammered the ridge. Through sheets of water they glimpsed what looked like smoke, but smelled like stone. The same pale mist seen in earlier footage, now rising thicker and faster. It came straight out of the crack, escaping with the hiss of boiled air. Lightning split the sky, silent and blinding, touching ground an impossible number of times in 1 hour. One strike arced across the dome of the rock again, a perfect vertical line captured by half a dozen cameras. Engineers would later confirm lightning protection systems failed to trigger. The discharge entered the stone instead of the metal rods. When inspectors checked the structure afterward, they found trace magnetization embedded within its masonry, like a compass forced to remember. Jerusalem received nearly its annual rainfall in 4 hours. The Western Wall Plaza became a stream. Flash floods tore through the old city tunnels, lifting centuries of gust into swirling mud. By nightfall, emergency sirens wailed across districts unaccustomed to disaster. Yet above the panic ran another note, deeper than thunder, an echo that vibrated through the saturated ground, like a drum the size of a country. Locals who had learned to fear Thursdays feared now a storm that did not wait for schedule. At dawn, rescuers moved through ankle-deep water, pulling cars from sinkholes. Along the Mount of Olives access road, the largest cavity yet had opened, 12 meters across and widening by the hour. When geologists peered inside, they saw something chilling. The floodwater had not merely eroded soil, it had followed the main fissure downward, carving an empty channel deeper into bedrock. When tracking equipment mapped its direction, they found the channel mirrored the same east-west axis, continuing unseen beneath the mountain. The flood had revealed a ready-made road underground. The idea spread before scientists could control it. Television analysts began speaking of hidden corridors and unsealed veins. Religious commentators called it preparation. For most of May, aftershocks kept shaking the city, small at first, then building. Each tremor came from the same depth, 4 kilometers, as if something alive moved slowly closer to the surface. Residents felt constant vibration under their floors, like a heartbeat from deep earth. By the middle of the month, satellites measured cumulative displacement of nearly 4 centimeters. The Mount of Olives was being pulled apart east from west in deliberate increments. Engineers deployed new sensors at the ridge summit. Data showed rhythmic pulses building daily, pressure waves repeating every 24 hours, even without earthquakes. "It's no longer a fault, it's a metronome," one technician said. City officials debated evacuation of vulnerable buildings. None dared mention prophecy in meeting notes, but everyone knew which verse the public whispered. The first major quake struck at 2:17 a.m. May 15th, registering 3.4 on the Richter scale. Not large enough to cause collapse, yet large enough to wake the city. The epicenter sat precisely under the mountain. Standard geology predicts a sequence of diminishing aftershocks. Instead, magnitudes climbed. May 16th brought 3.6, the next night 3.8, the next 4.1. Each pulse repeated at almost the same hour. When the biggest hit, a 4.7 on May 25th, the shaking cracked centuries-old plaster inside churches and rattled ancient tombstones loose. Nothing catastrophic, but the data was unmistakable. The strain was escalating, not releasing. In one residential building along the ridgeline, a structural engineer discovered something new. The foundation had detached from bedrock, not crumbled, simply shifted apart. On one side, measurements showed movement 4 centimeters east, on the other, 4 west. Equal and opposite, as though hands pulled a brick of earth from both ends. He ordered the building evacuated. Standing inside its empty rooms, he described the motion simply. The mountain isn't falling, it's parting. Dr. Levy's field readings confirmed it. Over 2 weeks, the area widened millimeter by millimeter, a geologic slow-motion rip, echoing the weekly tones that still visited at dawn.
On May 28th, geologists noticed an entirely different phenomenon. The quake pattern synchronized with barometric pressure cycles above Jerusalem. The mountain breathed in tandem with the sky, ground rising subtly as clouds formed, settling again when they dispersed. The effect was measurable yet unseen, an invisible choreography between rock and air. That evening, after days of storms, the clouds thinned into something unlike any they had ever recorded. Shapes aligned in long pale bars crossing over the Temple Mount. Tour guides snapped photos. From dozens of vantage points across the city, the same pattern appeared, intersecting bands forming a luminous cross. For 47 minutes, the formation held its geometry. Then it dissolved. The meteorological office called it coincidence of wind shear, but their own record showed no reason for the persistence of those clouds. 2 days later, reports of other shapes followed. Faces glimpsed for seconds, light arrangements too orderly to ignore. Arguments flared between believers and debunkers, both sides citing data with equal passion. Through it all, tremors continued, rising daily like a background tempo. At this point, most researchers withdrew, handing data to computers to crunch patterns. Levy stayed, though fatigue drew lines across her face. "We are watching a script being written in stone," she said quietly to a colleague. "I'd like to know who the author is." The ministry wanted optimism. She offered numbers: cumulative movement, rate of acceleration, probability of major rupture. Her estimates were moderate, yet her tone lacked comfort. They asked for forecasts. She refused. "You can't predict something that doesn't follow physics," she said. The next morning, she received footage from a tourist's camera, an accidental capture of the fracture zone during a flash of lightning. For an instant, the crack glowed bright white from end to end and vanished. When the frame was enhanced, the light seemed to originate within the stone, not from above. Levy's log entry that night read only 2 words: internal illumination. By early June, the Mount of Olives had become a living lab. Scholars of every persuasion camped nearby, testing, praying, documenting. The government maintained distance, citing safety. Yet the city's pulse had changed. Each aftershock's intervals matched not random stress relief, but harmonic ratios, as if the Earth were tuning itself. The numerical pattern, 7-day spacing, 3-minute tones, daily micro-vibrations, blurred boundaries between weather, sound, and prophecy. One could delete names of prophets and still face unsolved physics. Meanwhile, daily life tried to proceed. Traffic resumed, markets reopened, festivals approached. But every citizen carried 2 clocks, the mundane one on their hand and another counting toward the next tremor. When it struck again, May 31st, instruments everywhere spiked simultaneously. The tremor lasted only seconds, but its force lifted dust visible across the valley. Observers on the walls saw 2 halves of the ridge shimmer, imperceptibly sliding past each other. "It's begun to unseal itself," Levy told a reporter later. She chose her words carefully. "Whatever limits have held this mountain quiet for millennia are changing. We're recording motion where there shouldn't be any." The interviewer asked if it was dangerous. "Only if we pretend it isn't happening," she answered. Her remark made every network's opening line for days. Rain finally ceased, leaving the land cleaned but uneasy. Roads were repaired, but small cracks kept reappearing even in fresh asphalt. When engineers traced their alignment, they pointed in the same direction, east to west. Weeks of water, fire, and resonance had carved consistent geometry. Nature seemed obsessed with a single straight line. As weather warmed into summer, the mountain's new shape could be drawn on any city map. Thin, deliberate, unmistakable, it pointed directly toward the sealed gate lying dormant across the valley. From air, it looked like a key aligning with a lock.
The rains receded, leaving the earth bruised and gleaming. What the storm had washed away revealed more than anyone expected. Damage assessment crews combing the lower slopes of the old city found soil collapse near the city of David, a narrow valley just south of the Temple Mount. It wasn't new ground. Archaeologists had been excavating there for years, but the flood had stripped away meters of debris, exposing a pattern of dressed stones so precise they reflected light like a signal. Workers called in supervisors,
who called in historians, who called the National Antiquities Authority. Within days, the dig was surrounded by ropes, cameras, and whispers of discovery. Beneath the rubble lay the top edge of a structure far larger than anything catalogued nearby. A stone dam built of megablocks, fitted together without mortar, positioned perfectly to control an underground water channel. Samples of its plaster dated to roughly 7 centuries before Christ. The timing matched an era described in both historical records and sacred text. The reign of a Judean king said to have engineered a water diversion to protect Jerusalem from siege. For decades, scholars argued over the story's accuracy, and yet here lay the proof, the dam itself, still intact, the last stage of Hezekiah's legendary tunnel system. The cameras zoomed in. Crowds cheered. On screens across the world, headlines trumpeted, "Scripture meets science." It was welcome contrast to the darker news from the Mount of Olives. For a moment, Jerusalem looked like a city rediscovering faith through stone rather than fear. Then someone found the seals. While clearing sediment near the dam's base, a field assistant unearthed small lumps of dried clay, each about the size of a coin, but stamped with ancient writing. When cleaned and magnified, the letters formed names scholars recognized. Baruch, son of Neriah, personal scribe to the prophet Jeremiah. Gemariah, son of Shaphan, court official of the same period. The imprints matched lines in surviving scrolls too exactly to dismiss. Authenticators checked composition, script style, and location. Everything fit. There was no forgery, only confirmation. The news marched through the academic world like fire through dry grass. For generations, critics treated the prophetic books as post-exile inventions. Now archaeology had placed living fingerprints into their margins. If the scribes had existed exactly as written, if the engineers had built the defenses exactly as described, what else in those scrolls might be recording literal history rather than symbol? Levi watched from the sidelines, half relieved and half unsettled. She knew how easily discovery in this city feeds belief, and how belief can swing between comfort and chaos. She noted, however, that every new artifact emerged in sync with another tremor. Each surge of the earth seemed to lift another layer of past into daylight. During one such tremor, cameras caught fragments of pottery sliding out of the excavation wall. One piece bore 3 parallel scratches matching a pattern recognized in early Hebrew numeration, 3. The next 5. When reassembled, the shard spelled 35, the same number researchers used to code the coordinates of the Mount of Olives fault line. Too exact to spoil the imagination, the press turned the coincidence into prophecy fuel. Editorials mused that the mountain's movement and the city's artifacts might belong to the same choreography, the stone history reawakening as the ground prepared its finale. University spokespeople kept calm tones. Correlation doesn't mean intention, but the idea had escaped containment. Tour groups began booking new itineraries titled The Living Prophecy Trail. They would start at the Tunnel of Hezekiah, walk through its damp corridors, climb to the Eastern Gate overlook, and then cross to the earthquake fence on the Mount of Olives. Pilgrims wept at the journey's symmetry, the past proven underfoot, the future rumbling ahead. Night after night, the low Thursday tone returned, steady as ever. Seismic charts now overlapped perfectly with excavation timetables. The same hour that scientists measured the mountain's pull, diggers downtown recorded minor collapses exposing fresh artifacts. One archaeologist whispered to a colleague, "The Earth's helping us remember." Month by month,
museums filled with finds once buried beyond reach, seals, pottery, coins. Scholars stopped calling them discoveries and began calling them returns. During a live broadcast, a young curator standing beside the newly uncovered dam held up one of the clay seals and said, "If texts we dismissed as legend are now verified line by line, perhaps what they predict still demands verification." Viewers did not miss the implication. If these texts had captured past truth so precisely, their promises of future upheaval deserve attention. Political commentators reacted cautiously. Religious leaders did not. Sermons across denominations suddenly sounded almost identical. The stones are speaking again. An Orthodox rabbi told his students, "Every generation asks for a sign. God built us a city where we trip over signs before breakfast." A pastor in Texas quoted him word for word on television hours later. Levy avoided microphones. She wrote papers, she published data, yet the question haunted her as much as anyone. Why now? Every century, Jerusalem gives up secrets, but never at this tempo, never aligned so neatly with environmental anomalies. She began carrying 2 notebooks, one for instrumentation results, another for what she simply titled Convergences. June 12th brought the most significant entry. A student reviewing soil samples noticed something embedded between layers of silt, each about the size of a coin, but stamped with ancient writing. When cleaned and magnified, the letters formed names scholars recognized. Baruch, son of Neriah, personal scribe to the prophet Jeremiah. Gemariah, son of Shaphan, court official of the same period. The imprints matched lines in surviving scrolls too exactly to dismiss. Authenticators checked composition, script style, and location. Everything fit. There was no forgery, only confirmation. The news marched through the academic world like fire through dry grass. For generations, critics treated the prophetic books as post-exile inventions. Now archaeology had placed living fingerprints into their margins. If the scribes had existed exactly as written, if the engineers had built the defenses exactly as described, what else in those scrolls might be recording literal history rather than symbol? Levy watched from the sidelines, half relieved and half unsettled. She knew how easily discovery in this city feeds belief, and how belief can swing between comfort and chaos. She noted, however, that every new artifact emerged in sync with another tremor. Each surge of the earth seemed to lift another layer of past into daylight. During one such tremor, cameras caught fragments of pottery sliding out of the excavation wall. One piece bore 3 parallel scratches matching a pattern recognized in early Hebrew numeration, 3. The next 5. When reassembled, the shard spelled 35, the same number researchers used to code the coordinates of the Mount of Olives fault line, too exact to spoil the imagination. The press turned the coincidence into prophecy fuel. Editorials mused that the mountain's movement and the city's artifacts might belong to the same choreography, the stone history reawakening as the ground prepared its finale. University spokespeople kept calm tones. Correlation doesn't mean intention, but the idea had escaped containment. Tour groups began booking new itineraries titled The Living Prophecy Trail. They would start at the Tunnel of Hezekiah, walk through its damp corridors, climb to the Eastern Gate overlook, and then cross to the earthquake fence on the Mount of Olives. Pilgrims wept at the journey's symmetry.
The past proven underfoot, the future rumbling ahead. Night after night, the low Thursday tone returned, steady as ever. Seismic charts now overlapped perfectly with excavation timetables. The same hour that scientists measured the mountain's pull, diggers downtown recorded minor collapses, exposing fresh artifacts. One archaeologist whispered to a colleague, "The Earth's helping us remember." Month by month, museums filled with finds once buried beyond reach. Seals, pottery, coins. Scholars stopped calling them discoveries and began calling them returns. During a live broadcast, a young curator standing beside the newly uncovered dam held up one of the clay seals and said, "If texts we dismissed as legend are now verified line by line, perhaps what they predict still demands verification." Viewers did not miss the implication. If these texts had captured past truth so precisely, their promises of future upheaval deserved attention. Political commentators reacted cautiously. Religious leaders did not. Sermons across denominations suddenly sounded almost identical. "The stones are speaking again." An Orthodox rabbi told his students, "Every generation asks for a sign. God built us a city where we trip over signs before breakfast." A pastor in Texas quoted him word for word on television hours later. Levy avoided microphones. She wrote papers. She published data. Yet the question haunted her as much as anyone else. Why now? Every century Jerusalem gives up secrets, but never at this tempo. Never aligned so neatly with environmental anomalies. She began carrying 2 notebooks, one for instrumentation results, another for what she simply titled Convergences. June 12th brought the most significant entry. A student reviewing soil samples noticed something embedded between layers of silt. Another seal impression, this time bearing a name, Azariah, son of Hilkiah, a family of high priests serving in the same dynasty described by Hezekiah's scribes. Same era, same clay composition, same script. 3 seals, 3 confirmations, each referencing a person once thought semi-mythical. When Dr. Levy held them together under sunlight, they shimmered faintly with mica, glittering like stars pressed into earth. She felt an unexpected tremor of emotion, not fear, but reverence. Stone, she thought, has better memory than humans. Her colleague photographed the scene, careful to include her measuring ruler in the frame. Only later did she realize what the image captured beyond intention. In the background, rising behind the open trench, stood the silhouette of the Mount of Olives, cut by a pale horizontal band, the main fracture line gleaming in evening light. The photograph ricocheted around the world, appearing on magazine covers with captions she disliked. "Past meets prophecy," "Jerusalem alive," "The line between ages." Commentators pointed out symmetry again. Where prophecy once foretold the mountain splitting east to west, archaeology now confirmed the ancient engineers also built east to west. Alignment upon alignment, as though geography itself had always known its cue. By late June, deeper tunneling revealed stone stairs leading to a sealed chamber beneath the dam. Inside lay carefully folded scroll fragments of parchment, so fragile they could crumble at a breath. One fragment contained only a few legible lines, a list of city officials, but under it a barely visible title, Book of the Future Waters. The name paralyzed everyone in the tent. No text by that title survives. Some predicted it might describe hydrological prophecy, the same theme found in Ezekiel's visions of rivers flowing eastward to heal deserts. Until preservation experts stabilized the parchment, no one could verify content, but the phrase alone reignited fascination. International attention surged again. Flights to Israel sold out. At conference podiums, scientists and theologians shared microphones awkwardly. Each tried to define reality without trespassing on the other's language. A geophysicist pointed out that limestone's minerals can act almost like magnetic tape, storing imprints of resonance when struck by pressure waves. The Earth remembers vibration. Maybe we're reading its playback. The audience applauded, not sure whether they'd heard poetry or physics. Back at the ridge, another quake rippled underfoot. Small, harmless, almost gentle, but noticeable. Fishermen down at the Dead Sea reported bubbles rising through hypersaline water minutes later. No one connected the two events until data showed the timing matched perfectly. Shockwaves had traveled east, loosening gas trapped beneath the desert. Reporters framed it simply: echoes from the mount reach the sea. Those words mirrored the ancient vision of fresh water reviving dead places. Few missed the parallel. For Dr. Levy, the connection sparked intellectual crisis. She'd spent her life measuring cause and effect. Now, cause and prophecy were hauntingly interchangeable. Each new event seemed both inevitable science and deliberate message. She began speaking less in percentages and more in riddles. "We're observing laws we didn't realize had authors," she told a colleague. By early July, excavation teams uncovered a line of stones believed to mark the city's earliest defensive wall. Its orientation matched the crack on the mount, forming a continuous east-west thread through generations of architecture. Ancient masons apparently following the same axis under discussion in every laboratory. Satellite imaging confirmed the pattern extended beyond the city limits toward the desert, a faint subsurface ridge that could represent an old water channel or fault extension. Either way, the geometry was there, written across land and age. Three disciplines, geology, archaeology, and theology, now traced the same invisible design. Reporters summarized it in one sentence so simple it became haunting: "The ground remembers what the prophets wrote." The phrase stuck, printed on banners, shirts, and signs hoisted around observation sites. Levy winced every time she saw it, but couldn't deny the data. She delivered a briefing to government scientists summarizing all new physical findings: micro-seismic activity, electromagnetic pulses, structural separation, subsurface voids. Then she added one slide showing the alignment of ancient engineering works with the modern fracture. "This," she said, "is statistically improbable, almost impossible without intention." Silence filled the room. Someone asked, "You mean human planning?" She looked out the window toward the mountain, then back at the graphs. "I mean planning. Define the planner, however you like." Her report circulated in private. Within days, anonymous excerpts appeared online under the headline, "The Scientist Who Whispered Providence." The debate reached fever pitch. Every network ran split screens, one half showing satellites measuring strain, the other displaying the hands of archaeologists brushing dust from relics that proved the texts predicting strain had been written by names now found in clay. For those seeking patterns, the message looked complete. The stone spoke, the ground answered, both in the same direction. By midsummer, the low Thursday tone deepened once more, now vibrating through metal infrastructure, rattling railings on balconies like tuning forks. The resonance spread far beyond geology, into commerce, politics, faith itself. Everything built on the foundation of that city seemed to pick up the same note.
the stones beneath the Mount of Olives, the stones of Hezekiah's dam, the stones sealing the eastern gate. Each hum carried it. The ancient and the modern sang one sustained frequency, and the world listened, not knowing whether the song marked warning or welcome. By midsummer, the tension in Jerusalem no longer seemed confined to stone. The whole region felt charged, as if the atmosphere itself had joined the conversation. Heat arrived early and heavy. Winds off the desert brought a metallic scent people said they could taste. Farmers east of the city noticed insects gathering in thicker clouds than usual. By late June, those clouds took shape. Locusts, billions of them, sweeping across the Middle East and East Africa, chewing crops down to bare soil. Experts called it the worst infestation in half a century. Drones tracked swarms large enough to blot satellite images. Each flock traveled hundreds of kilometers in a day, moving westward toward the Red Sea. When the wind turned north, their trajectory pointed straight for the Jordan Valley before dispersing. On screens in research labs, animated maps looked oddly familiar, mirroring descriptions preserved for millennia, living storms devouring whatever green remained. But the news anchors avoided theological language. They spoke instead of ecological convergence, unprecedented scale, food insecurity. The numbers alone were chilling. An individual swarm could consume an amount of grain equal to tens of millions of meals in a single day. For those already watching the Mount of Olives, the sight of skies turning black carried another kind of hunger. Prophecy had cursed Egypt with locusts once. Now the same plague brushed the borders of the same land. Within weeks, another anomaly joined them. Fishing crews operating along the Dead Sea's receding margins found patches of water no longer deadly. Freshwater pools had appeared where evaporation should have left only salt. Small fish darted in the shallows, reeds pushed through crystal crust. For scientists, the explanation was simple: groundwater seepage following pressure changes underground. But many who had been mapping every tremor from the Mount of Olives noticed the timing too perfect, the creation of life happening down the very line the earthquake had drawn. Journalists filed side-by-side stories, one half covering seismology, the other environmental renewal. The headlines used the same family of words: split, open, quicken, breathe. In places where no plant had grown for centuries, thin grass sprouted. Residents collected water from new springs and argued about whether it tasted sweet or simply different. Levy's team tested samples. The chemistry defied expectations. Mineral concentrations should have been toxic, yet readings showed near fresh. Extreme desalination along fault channels, the report guessed, then added a sentence she never thought she'd write in a scientific document: process mechanism presently indeterminate. Images from drones, gray salt plains speckled with green, filled screens worldwide. One coastal biologist watching from a Nairobi feed murmured, "The Dead Sea isn't dead." The clip spread as fast as the plagues. Around the same time, the Sea of Galilee turned red. Tourists first noticed the color shift from the southern shore, where calm evening waves reflected crimson under sunset. But when they returned in daylight, the tint remained. Laboratories confirmed an algal bloom, the sort of event that sometimes visits warm lakes, harmless when small, but startling when it paints miles of water. The pattern of coincidence was too much for commentators to ignore. Locusts, living water, a Red Sea at the nation's heart, and a trembling mount overlooking them all. Every newsroom in the world seemed to ask one reluctant question: what if the text isn't metaphor? Scientists kept explanations on strictly physical ground: rainfall cycles, nutrient runoff, warming trends. Each cause accounted for a single effect, none accounted for timing. In London, a climatologist sighed to a reporter, "We're witnessing overlapping systems expressing instability." The reporter replied, "That's a polite way of saying the world is sinking to prophecy." He didn't argue.
Food markets began to echo with unease. Grain prices climbed, transport lines faltered, famine models appeared in economic reports. The connection from environmental crisis to prophetic language was invisible on paper, but audible in tone. Commentators who had scoffed months earlier now spoke of biblical scale. For Dr. Levy, the changes felt personal. She had stopped hearing just noise in the data. The mountain's low hum appeared to rise in pitch as each event unfolded, as if keeping tempo with the natural world. When locust imagery dominated the news, her spectrum analyzer showed random bursts in upper frequencies, a signature she'd never seen before, delicate tremors like beating wings. She cataloged everything and labeled the files coincidences, knowing the term had become meaningless. Her assistant noted the effect of the constant stress. "You hardly sleep," he said. "I'm afraid to," she admitted. "Every time I close my eyes, something new wakes us up." By mid-July, the heat cracked records. Dust storms, red as clay, blinded highways across Arabia. Fishermen on the Mediterranean coast reported lightning flashing from clear air. The electromagnetic data from Jerusalem mirrored those bursts precisely. Environmental scientists confirmed a jet stream deviation unlike anything in decades, pulling storms north while leaving the region both drenched and dry in the wrong places, a paradox of flood and drought. For historians of Scripture, the phrase came easily: blood, fire, and pillars of smoke. Television network began pairing weather maps with verses about signs in heaven and earth. The tone was cautious, professional, but the effect was unmistakable. Science had begun to quote prophecy without meaning to. In coffee shops across Jerusalem, conversation turned predictive. Some marked calendars, others mocked. Yet nearly everyone agreed on one point: events that once belonged to metaphor were bleeding into factual reports. On a humid night in August, cameras around the Mount of Olives captured the region's first true firestorm in living memory. Lightning, unaccompanied by rain, raked the hillsides and ignited olive groves, flames twisting into pillars hundreds of feet high. The crackling orange light reflected off the dome of the rock like a forge. Fire crews fought through smoke. Drones showed the burn pattern after dawn, a perfect corridor of ash running east to west. Once again, direction obeyed prophecy's geometry. Even journalists who avoided religious language admitted unease. A broadcaster stood amid blackened trees and declared, "Whatever you call it, nature is aligning itself with ancient coordinates." When the smoke cleared, the roots of charred trees smoldered along the fracture itself, as if heat had come not from above, but below. Instruments placed nearby measured increased ground temperature along the fault zone, 23 degrees higher than surrounding rock. No magma exists beneath the Mount of Olives. Such readings were impossible.
In the heart of Jerusalem, stone remembers. Beneath its streets lies a lattice of ancient rock that has carried empires like a backbone. For centuries, instruments placed across the ridge have tracked its slow pulse. Ordinary tremors, harmless movement, the sigh of living earth. Then one evening in March, the pattern broke. At 7:42 p.m., the monitors inside the geological center flared red. For a moment, the technicians assumed malfunction. Nothing in the calm weather could produce that kind of spike. But the same error appeared on every machine in the room. Timestamps matched to the second. They were watching the Mount of Olives move. The early readout suggested a small quake a few kilometers deep, yet the direction of force defied logic. Instead of running north to south along the known Dead Sea Fault, the energy pushed due east and west, straight toward the old city's walls. The control room fell quiet. One scientist asked, "How can the strain run the wrong way?" No one answered. Within an hour, response teams were on the mountain. Floodlights lit the slopes, and laser scanners swept across olive trees older than modern nations. What they found stopped them cold. Fractures cut through the ridge like thin black lines, too straight, too uniform to be natural. Dust still settled along the edges. Fresh rock smelled sharp and metallic. When they shone light down one fissure, it reflected as if the limestone had been sliced by a mirror blade. The senior geologist, Dr. Amira Levy, wrote in her binder, "Clean sheer surfaces, no weathering, orientation exact east to west. She traced the direction with her finger and frowned. It lined up perfectly with the old city skyline. When a camera operator lifted his lens toward the golden dome, the shot caught both features, the glowing shrine and the pale ridge beneath. His clock recorded 1943-17. The exact same second lightning sensors in Jerusalem registered a strike on the Dome of the Rock. 2 locations, 2 events, same moment in time.
Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more awe-inspiring stories of faith, survival, and miracles.
The department merged the readings. A seismic pulse and an electric discharge had hit simultaneously, separated by less than 2 kilometers. Coincidence, someone muttered. Levy didn't respond. By dawn, international agencies had joined the investigation. Drone surveys revealed the fissure extending like a scar running straight east to west. Analysts overlaid dozens of images, expecting the normal irregular patterns of quake damage. Instead, the line was perfect, almost as if the mountain had followed a ruler. One network dubbed it a geological barcode. Most papers avoided the word prophecy, but the thought clung to every interview. Beneath the debate stretched a deeper unease. This ridge, sacred to 3 faiths, was also the shell of one of the world's most sensitive faults. Normally it slumbers. Now it was alive and expanding. Measurements 12 hours apart showed the 2 sides drifting away from each other. Fractions of a centimeter, yes, but always opposite. Always east and west. Never stray. Slow motion separation. A mountain stretching by design. Day by day, the cracks lengthened. Locals climbing the hill to pray found fresh dust and thin slits in the paths they had walked all their lives. Some took photos and sent them online with the caption, "Stone is waking." The clips spread, mixed with verses people pulled from memory about a mountain dividing before the coming of the Lord. Geologists rolled their eyes, yet they kept measuring, because the math was not cooperating with their models. In the temporary command tent, screens displayed the live telemetry. When outside researchers combined the seismic data with readings of Earth's magnetic field, they noticed a strange match. Pulses of magnetic fluctuations synchronized with the movement under the ridge. It was as if electromagnetism, not plate stress, was driving the shift. No current geological model could explain it. One British scientist said quietly, "It's like the mountain is responding to something above, not below." The next set of instruments went in deeper. Levy's team drilled narrow shafts and inserted acoustic sensors to record micro-vibrations. Underground sound ought to arrive as static blasts of energy. Instead, the recordings carried tone, a low, repeated hum around 55 hertz. They boosted the volume, and the metal table started to tremble. "Machinery nearby?" a technician asked. "None within 3 miles," another said. The sound continued, steady as breathing. While they argued over resonance, the city outside woke to rumors of trumpet-like noises sliding across the sky before dawn. Police dispatch logged dozens of calls. People described a single note that seemed to float through the air for 2 or 3 minutes. The time? 4:30 a.m. Exactly when the underground sensors had captured their strongest vibration. Levy compared timestamps, then closed her laptop quietly. One line in her notes reads, "Unknown phenomenon, repeating weekly, frequency, constant." A week later, the pattern returned. Thursday, 4:30 a.m. The same tone, the same deep hum vibrating through rock and air. Thousands of residents recorded it on phones. Meteorologists offered weather inversions. Physicists spoke of atmospheric ducts. None matched the conditions. The sound was too pure, too even, and came from everywhere at once. One witness said, "It's like a giant speaker under the city. It doesn't echo, it fills you."
Drones above the ridge recorded slight changes each time the tone occurred. After every incident, the fissure widened a fraction more. Precision like clockwork. The comparison tables looked artificial. 7-day interval, identical duration, incremental growth. All movement along that same relentless east-west line. City engineers pressed for reassurance. Could the slope hold? Levy hesitated. If this were a normal fault, I'd say yes, but it's behaving like something that has instructions. Her remark leaked to a reporter, and within hours, headlines appeared. "The mountain that follows orders." The phrase stuck. By now, international attention magnified every reading. Geological monitors lit up like stock tickers. Satellite analyses from NASA and the ESA confirmed micromovement consistent with the local instruments. One agency reported that the deformation line aligned exactly with the direction of sunrise on the spring equinox. A coincidence, perhaps, but another pattern inside the pattern. Thursday came again. Same hour, same sound, another tremor. This time measurable. Magnitude 3.4 at a depth of 4 kilometers. Harmless, yet precise. The mountain stirred once each week and slept again. Equipment at the site captured minor lateral displacement, the western flank shifting west 4 millimeters, the eastern flank east by the same amount. Symmetry within chaos. Residents began to treat the timing as an alarm clock. People gathered at night on rooftops, listening for the low tone they called the trumpet. Some prayed, some recorded, some mocked. Regardless of belief, everyone could feel the vibration through concrete floors. Newspapers overseas labeled it an internet myth, yet the censors disagreed. By late March, the survey drones spotted a faint mist rising from the central fractures after sunset. It lasted only minutes, disappearing before wind could disperse it. Thermal cameras detected the vapor as warmer than the air around it by several degrees. Chemical sampling showed nothing exotic, just water and trace minerals, but the temperature difference made no physical sense. One photographer posted the image online, a glowing line breathing steam into the dusk. The caption read, "The mountain exhales." It circled the globe overnight. Inside the command tent, batteries drained faster than expected, compasses spun slightly off north, cameras froze mid-frame. Every electronic failure carried the same curious timing, always around the half-hour mark of the Thursday tone. Scientists blamed magnetic noise. Technicians muttered about interference stronger than small storms. Levy summarized it neatly. The mountain is broadcasting something. By the third week of readings, the phenomenon had achieved ritual regularity. Lightning silently flared over the city, sensors detonated with data, then quiet returned until next Thursday. Ridicule and reverence lived side by side on screens. Some quoted old prophecies about trumpets over Zion. Others made playlists out of the recorded sounds. What no one could explain was the accuracy, frequency, timing, direction. Every variable locked into a pattern more disciplined than natural chaos allows. Statistical models predicted randomness. The fractures did not deviate by a single degree. When mapped against the city's coordinates, the line ran straight toward the ancient, sealed Eastern Gate. Modern urban planners call that coincidence. Historians call it alignment. On the 21st day, the tremor returned stronger, magnitude 3.6, followed by 3.8, then 3.1 as the days passed, each increment a little higher than the last. Typical earthquake swarms release energy and fade. This one built upon itself, like a rhythm gathering force. "It's climbing a scale," said one researcher. "What's the top note?" No one wanted to answer. At exactly 04:30 a.m. on the fourth Thursday event, drones hovering over the valley recorded dust plumes emerging from the ridge, fine orange haze drifting east. The fractures gleamed faintly as metal instrumentation reflected early light. The mountain seemed alive, breathing in numbers. Levy submitted a new summary: progressive expansion east-west, underlying cause unresolved, human structure stable for now, recommend continuous monitoring. She stopped short of adding the obvious, that every measured movement fulfilled a single direction described in an old prophetic text she could no longer ignore. By the end of March, the Mount of Olives had shifted nearly 2 centimeters across its width. Not catastrophic, but undeniable. In geological time, that's a blink. In symbolic time, it is a countdown. For the first time, city engineers briefed government offices. Evacuation maps were quietly drafted. No public alerts were issued. Officials feared panic or worse, the spark of apocalyptic expectation in a city already divided by belief. Their silence spoke louder than any press release.
Underground, the sensors continued their soft percussion. Above, the horizon carried the same gilded calm. Between them, an unseen pressure kept pulling east from west, precisely as it had for weeks, as if something beneath the earth were tightening invisible cords. Experts called it a localized tectonic adjustment. Believers called it the beginning. Either way, it was measurable, real, and expanding. As Thursday approached again, the scientists prepared for the fifth cycle. The equipment hummed, cameras rolled, seismographs waited. At 04:29 a.m., the recording began. At 04:30 a.m. exactly, the low-frequency tone returned. Longer this time, louder, joined by a light tremor that rippled through the laboratories. Instruments jumped, coffee cups rattled. Then silence. The line on the monitor stabilized. The mountain had spoken again and paused, patient. When dawn lifted over the city, reporters scanned the skyline, searching for cracks or smoke or fire. They found nothing new, only the same quiet slopes gleaming in early light. Yet the data told another story. The east and west flanks stood a fraction farther apart, precisely as before, as if drawn slowly by unseen hands. No one could yet describe what mechanism links lightning, sound, and shifting earth. No model fits the information ballooning from that ridge. It sits like an equation missing one vital variable. Perhaps that variable is time. For now, the mountain remains still between pulses, holding its breath like an organism conscious of something approaching. The numbers are small. The implications are not. Scientists continue their work, instruments humming over living stone, while prophets long gone whisper from their pages about the day a mountain east of Jerusalem would divide from east to west and everything would change. Whatever is happening beneath those olive trees has only begun. The next tremor may be days away or tomorrow. Each minute, micro-movements nudge the halves apart, measured, inevitable, obedient. And though no geologist will say it aloud, everyone standing on that ridge feels the same quiet thought pressing at the back of the mind. The ground is preparing for something. The first sound had been strange. The second was unforgettable. It was 4:30 again on a Thursday morning, the same hour the ridge always stirred. But this time, the tone did not stay confined to the mountain. It rolled across the whole city like a slow-moving front, low enough to shake window panes, deep enough to rattle the chest. People poured onto balconies. Every recording device within reach began capturing the noise. Phones, surveillance cameras, anything with a microphone. The sound lasted almost exactly 3 minutes. It never swelled, never faded. It simply existed, constant, circular, as if the air itself had become an instrument. Traffic stopped. Dogs howled. One radio technician, listening through his headphones, swore he could hear a harmonic structure hidden inside. 3 notes cycling in sequence, the kind of mathematical precision no thunder ever carries. When silence returned, it felt heavier than before. Within the hour, footage appeared online. Thousands of clips from every neighborhood, each file time-stamped within the same 20-second window. The spectral analysis was identical. Pitch, 55 hertz. Duration, 2 minutes, 58 seconds. Origin, everywhere. Skeptics laughed it off as atmospheric resonance. Others remembered the weekly pattern and grew anxious. City officials issued a brief statement. No hazards. Possible inversion layer amplifying industrial noise. The explanation satisfied no one. Factories were closed, and the weather that night had been stable. The sound, however, was not finished. At exactly the same time the next week, the tone returned. Again, Thursday. Again, 04:30 a.m. A perfect copy of itself,
Witnesses from the previous week watched with dread anticipation as the vibration climbed up through the floors of their homes. A shopkeeper described her shelves humming, coins trembling on the counter as if drawn by invisible magnetism. For scientists, the duplication was both comfort and terror. A repeating signal suggested a pattern they could study, but the precision defied every natural process they knew. Across the Atlantic, research centers downloaded the public recordings and began filtering noise from signal. The waveform was eerie in its purity, a flawless sine curve. Atmospheric events generate broad, messy spectrums. This one looked manufactured. Engineers flagged an anomaly buried inside the data, a subharmonic repeating every 7 minutes, nearly imperceptible to the human ear. To those attuned to scripture, numbers like 7 did not appear by chance. Reports multiplied in surrounding communities. Villages east of Jerusalem heard the tone before it reached the city, suggesting it came from beneath the Judean hills. Yet when seismic instruments checked the ground, they detected no matching vibration. The sound existed without a source. Some physicists proposed standing wave resonance, where temperature layers trap sound between them. But no meteorological reading supported that theory. The air that night was still, dry, and unlayered. Others blamed radio interference from distant storms. Nothing on global radar aligned. Meanwhile, social networks turned the mystery into daily obsession. Hashtags in multiple languages spread across platforms. Video compilations stitched together the rising mist from the previous month with the rhythm of the sound, creating montages that looked more like movie trailers than news. Believers called them warnings. Skeptics called them viral theater. Yet even skeptics filmed when the Thursday dawn returned again. Every occurrence followed identical rules. Same hour, same duration, same direction of ground tension on geological sensors, same slight east-west pull. Each event left microscopic changes measurable only to machines, but consistent enough to form a countdown chart. 7 weeks, 7 incidents. By the 7th, the city had accepted the ritual. People braced at night, lying awake before the appointed time. A journalist described streets empty, but windows lit, as if an invisible broadcast commanded attention. When the tone came that morning, its amplitude doubled. Bridges shook. Car alarms blared, though there was no wind. Bystanders covering their ears said they felt the sound more than they heard it, a vibration that crossed bone. One frame-by-frame analysis captured something new. During the loudest moment, faint vertical lines of light appeared above the ridge, filament-thin flashes darting upward like silent lightning, but without storm clouds. Cameras registered them for 2 seconds, then everything stopped. Normal life resumed by breakfast, but equipment left on the mountain told a quieter story. Laser measurements showed the fissure widening a further 8 millimeters, 8 times the previous week's movement. Electrical engineers inspecting their data found simultaneous surges across every sensor the same instant the lights had flared. When they plotted the current spikes on a map, the lines formed a precise east-west axis again, stretching toward the eastern gate. Patterns build meaning. This one was becoming a language. By midday, agitated crowds gathered at the overlook facing the Temple Mount, arguing about what it all meant. One man held up a handwritten placard, "If technology can record it, then heaven has gone digital." No one laughed. Over the next days, Israel's Geological Survey partnered with the National University to cross-check data from foreign satellites. The instruments dozens of kilometers above Earth showed an electromagnetic pulse coinciding with each acoustic event. The strength was minor, barely above background radiation,
but its signature matched none of Earth's usual emissions. In layman's terms, the planet had produced a pulse with no physical cause. The Ministry of Science released a neutral statement: research ongoing, no risk detected. Inside the ministry, internal memos told another story. Officials wanted to keep public dialogue calm in a city where religious memory can ignite faster than wildfire. Calm was already fading.